Fans rejoiced when Sony first announced that Shadow of the Colossus would be coming to PS4 at E3 2017. It's been 12 years since the game's original release, and the game's reputation has not diminished over time. Hey guys, I'm Brendan here with the leaderboard, and today we're going to be falling in love with this game all over again. Here are 7 reasons why you should play Shadow of the Colossus on the PlayStation 4. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to become part of the notification squad. It's an exact remake. For fans of the original game, a huge selling point is knowing that this is an exact remake of the original. We're talking scene for scene, shot for shot, all the assets were completely rebuilt and restored in HD. That may also be a selling point for any avid gamer who's heard of Shadow of the Colossus but has yet to experience it. Of course, one of the most captivating aspects is the concept alone. Good storytelling is a vital aspect of RPGs, and Shadow of the Colossus is essentially a third-person action role-playing game. But its gameplay is far more focused than what you'd expect from said genre. So for instance, to set this game apart from other RPGs, you won't find any towns full of NPCs, there aren't roaming bad guys to attack for experience points, heck, there isn't even an inventory to manage, it's just you and your horse with a sword and a bow, hunting each Colossus, figuring out how to attack their vulnerable points. If you're unfamiliar with the game, the story and the setup has a tendency to lure in new players basically immediately. To sum it all up, gamers play as the protagonist named Wander, alongside his horse Agro. You embark on a quest to resurrect a girl named Mono, who lies dead in a crumbling stone temple. A disembodied voice guides you as you chase down and defeat a series of towering colossi scattered around the mostly desolate world surrounding the temple, all in an attempt to save Mono. The visuals are amazing! As most of you have probably guessed, the most obvious and rewarding element of the remake is how it looks. As we mentioned before, the graphics have been rebuilt from the ground up to meet modern standards, and we gotta say, the game looks breathtakingly gorgeous in HD. The visual polish is absolutely immersive, to say the least. From the beams of light shining through the Colossi's limbs to the sand being kicked around beneath Agro's feet, there is an insane amount of attention to detail put into every scene. It's also a solid demonstration of the PS4's hardware capabilities, but even more so, the remake's graphics are a testament to the timeless power of good visual design. Many fans of the original have already stated that exploring the world feels familiar, but with the new assets and graphical touches, it also feels strange and foreign. There are many newly added technical enhancements, like reactive foliage, realistic water physics, and dynamic lighting, none of which existed in the original or even the 2011 PS3 remaster. So to say that the Shadow of the Colossus world has been given a major facelift is almost an understatement, considering just how stunning its graphics are in comparison to the original. Newer, better controls. The controls for Shadow of the Colossus are notorious in that they worked in a very interesting and unique way. It didn't feel like other third-person games at the time it came out, and it still doesn't. However, because many gamers didn't actually fancy the setup, the game now includes updated controls, as well as an option to play with the original feel. The game's original creator, Fumito Ueda, claims that while the game is still the same, he and the developers are aware that player preferences change over time. So naturally, they figured it would be smart to implement a more modernized way to play. As a result, the controls have been cleverly tweaked to improve the gameplay experience. Now the PS4's touchpad lets you bring up a map, jump has been mapped to the X button instead of the triangle button, the dodge roll is now mapped to the circle button, making it easier to deploy than the previous R1 plus triangle combo. However, not everything has been vastly changed. The grab button is still the right trigger, for example. But these other improvements should result in more polished and accessible game controls. 60 frames per second option and 4K animation. So, we've already established that the PlayStation 4 remake of Shadow of the Colossus looks spectacular, but it'll look even better on Sony's latest hardware, the PlayStation 4 Pro, mostly because of the newly implemented ability to run at 60 frames per second. Sony announced that Shadow of the Colossus will run at 30 FPS on a standard PS4, and even in 4K on the PS4 Pro. But according to Sony's press site for Paris Games Week, PS4 Pro owners will also have the option to play Shadow of the Colossus at 60 FPS in 1080p. Sure, it's only 1080p, but still, this means the animation will be far smoother than any previously existing rendition of the game. Apparently, Sony didn't officially announce the 60 FPS support during Paris Games Week because the company was holding back that announcement for a later date. What's with all the suspense, Sony? Well, the option to revisit Shadow of the Colossus with 60 FPS gameplay is not only a pretty big change, it's just flat out exciting for us fans. Let's not forget here that the original PS2 version ran with a pretty inconsistent frame rate back in the day. Sony surprised fans with this one, but it's not just appealing to those who have already experienced Shadow of the Colossus. Any gamer is sure to rejoice. It's an iconic game. After being announced at E3 2017, the Shadow of the Colossus PS4 remake became one of the console's most anticipated games, which comes as no surprise really, considering the original was critically acclaimed when it launched on the PS2 in 2005, but the thought of playing it in HD on the PS4 is a tantalizing proposition to say the least, for those of us who've played it anyway. But does that mean a newcomer should give it a go? Well, the answer here from the leaderboard is absolutely yes! The game is straight up iconic! Seriously, Shadow of the Colossus is cited as one of the most influential titles in the industry and is often referred to as one of the greatest games of all time. The game's minimalist designs, immersive gameplay, and emotional story earned these accolades. To this very day, it's referenced frequently in debates for video games as art and emotional perspectives of video games. The game was directed by Fumito Ueda and developed at SCEI's International Production Studio 1, the same development team responsible for the cult hit Ico, the spiritual predecessor of Shadow of the Colossus. Furthermore, it received wide critical acclaim upon release and was met with strong sales in comparison to Ico, though this could be chalked up to the game's larger marketing campaign. The game won several awards for its audio design and overall quality. Oh, and that Ko Otani soundtrack must be on your iTunes. It's totally amazing. Remade by Bluepoint Games. This wouldn't be the first game Sony has thought to re-release with a fresh coat of paint. The studio has brought back older titles before, like Heavy Rain and God of War 3 to the PS4, but Shadow of the Colossus appears to be more like 2016's Ratchet & Clank revamp in that it largely follows the structure of the original. Although game director Shuhei Yoshida has hinted at the possibility of a few surprise tweaks here and there to modernize the classic title, no further information has been revealed on the subject at this point in time. Shadow of the Colossus is in development at Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Studio, which has previously worked on games like Knack, Gravity Rush, and Bloodborne. Now, Bluepoint Games is also involved in the production. The studio became well known for its remasters, including the original Titanfall for the Xbox 360 and Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection for the PlayStation 4. In fact, Bluepoint Games has a rather extensive and excellent track record when it comes to revamping old titles. They were even responsible for the Ico and Shadow of the Colossus collection on the PlayStation 3. Only this time, everything was rebuilt and remastered, making it a completely new version to explore, whereas the PlayStation 3's version of Shadow of the Colossus was a pretty standard HD remaster with clearer visuals and better sound. Epic boss battles. The entire game is centered around the Colossi, just as the title would have you believe. These Colossi are creatures made of stone and dark fur, some covered in grass. Surprisingly, not all of them are totally huge, but they do require strategy to overcome. Defeating them comes down to figuring out how to climb up to their weak points and stab them to death, but each battle becomes more and more complicated. Eventually, players must take note of their surroundings and read the environment to calculate their next move. Honestly, think about fighting them as kind of solving a puzzle. A puzzle that's trying to kill you. No two Colossi are exactly alike, so it's up to the player to determine the best way to face off against them. The goal is to aim for these magic sigils, signified by a dim blue, green, or yellow glow. Every Colossi has them, and they come in two different types, major and minor sigils. These are their weak spots. The major sigil is a glowing pattern of light that can be struck in order to slay the Colossus, whereas the minor one is just a crack in the Colossus's skin that delivers minor damage upon being hit. Aside from the challenges each one provides, these boss battles bring much of the game's beauty. The massive scale of the creatures coupled with the right camera angles and the lighting creates a rather cinematic experience for gamers to enjoy. So believe us when we say that Shadow of the Colossus is honestly not a game to be missed. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching 7 Reasons to Play the New Shadow of the Colossus. Have you played the game before? Which Colossi is your favorite? Give us a like or share your comments with us in the section below. Don't forget to click that bell icon to become part of the notification squad, and if you like getting more from your game, subscribe to the leaderboard, your home for video game fact.